Hello, everyone, and welcome to UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts. I am Blaine Gilmer. I'll be joined by Trent Smallwood shortly, and Jed May will be along even after that. Even to this minute, just a few minutes ago, Jed was out, kind of beating the bushes, so to speak, going out and getting some recruiting scoop for you guys. I think you saw on the Vault this weekend that, man, we were working around the clock trying to get reaction from this huge recruiting weekend and got plenty of it up on the Vault. That's why you need to be subscribed to the UGA Sports Vault. And speaking of subscribing, guys, we just hit 31,000 subs here on the YouTube channel, the biggest Georgia outlet out there on YouTube. And that's all because of you guys. So make sure to hit that like while you're in here. Go ahead and hit the subscribe. Tell your friends, because we're going to be breaking down all of the action here that happened from the weekend. So go ahead and tell everybody to tune in. As always, UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts is presented by Turner, Wood, and Smith Insurance in cooperation with auto owners. Visit twsinsurance.com or auto-owners.com for all your life, home, car, and business insurance needs. Guys, they've both been around for over 100 years. They're going to take care of your insurance needs and make sure that you get that customer service that you need as well whenever situations arise. All right, now I believe I got Trent in here with me. Trent, everything good technologically, man? You all right there?
I'm good. I'm spazzing out a little bit, but I'm good.
All right. Well, I'm gonna need you definitely to help carry the old voice this week. Something's going around the Gilmer household. I've been having all kinds of stuff, so you're gonna have to help put the team on your back right here, because I may lose it about halfway through. But
you kind of sound like you were in Sanford Stadium Saturday.
That's the crazy thing. I was not. I didn't have even noise to fight anything. So, yeah, guys, go ahead and drop in here in the YouTube. Tell us where you're watching from. Of course, Randy Payne from Tifton. He's always in here. Love having Randy join us every week. We got Marvis Hudson in here. Who else we got? Jeremy Barbie is in here. We've got Tim Hope from over in the Yellowhammer State joining us. Darth Janus from Dallas, Texas in here with us. Got Glover, Tony Glover from Jayville, North Carolina. So we got all kinds of people, all different places coming in here. Jeremy Barbie's watching just down the road from Loganville. So Joseph Godby from Murphy, North Carolina. So we got them watching from all over the place, Trent, and people from, speaking of watching from all over the place, what a spectacle it was Saturday. I know that's we're going to be talking about recruiting, but this ties directly into recruiting, because whenever you have literally millions and millions of eyeballs, and then, of course, hundreds of thousands descending on the town of Athens for that tailgate environment, for the game environment, it's huge for recruiting, and we'll get into the specifics of it. But just your thoughts, since you and I haven't got to really talk about the game or the result or anything, just your thoughts on Georgia's performance Saturday, and then we'll kind of connect it to recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the performance, I mean, it was just an unreal scheme that Kirby and the defensive staff come up with. It was I thought the offensive scheme to come out and take shots downfield. Thought that was a great plan by Todd Monken. It really looked like Georgia had been preparing for this team for 3 weeks. It kind of, it led me back to Oregon. The way the start was, just from and I really, there's no doubt in my mind if the rain wouldn't have come and they didn't dial it back. I think 28 plays in the second half and 4 passes and 28 or 24 runs. I think if you don't dial that back, I think you'd see more score like 46, 44 to 13. So I thought it was just a dominating performance. You thank guys like Eric Ainge and those guys for calling out Sanford Stadium, and the fans and the students came prepared and they showed out. And I'm telling you, an atmosphere like that, it not only helps you win the football game, but it helps you in recruiting. I mean, the recruits loved every single bit of that atmosphere. A lot of them have called it the loudest stadium. that they've been a part of, they've been at, or they've ever heard Sanford Stadium. Just all, just it was just a total package. You get a win on the field, you have an atmosphere like that. Just the recruits loved it, and Georgia's 9-0, on the way to go to another playoff and another potential back-to-back national champions.
It is insane, the momentum that was generated from this. And I'll go ahead and throw a question up because it's related to it. J.A. Song or Jason G. I don't know if it's J.A. Song or Jason G. So forgive me. 17 says, I know it's been talked about how much this weekend was huge for recruiting, but what really makes this weekend so special? So here's the thing. When you have a weekend like this, Trent, there's all these recruits that hear from, hundreds of coaches and different programs and things like that of what their team is going to do. And making these promises of here's what this product is going to look like on the field. But when Georgia comes out and does exactly what they tell everybody their program is built on, being more physically imposing than the other team, being faster than the other team, out executing the other team, being more composed than the other team. It is a perfect storm and gives Kirby Smart and that staff everything that they don't even have to say anything. It recruits itself and that environment that Georgia had this weekend. That's why it was so huge. And man, it just really, I know the Notre Dame game a couple of years ago was special. The night, the lights, all that kind of stuff. But I think, Trent, this one is much more significant and could probably have a longer lasting impact for the University of Georgia than that one. One, because it's a conference matchup and a storied rival. And two, I really believe, as we're going to get into here, that Georgia probably secured several commitments or this will be a major factor in securing several commitments, not just in 23 but beyond.
Yeah, and it's bigger because, like you said, it's a conference game, and one, you recruit against Tennessee a lot more than you recruit against Notre Dame. You recruit it, and on the same night that this all happens, Alabama gets knocked out of the playoffs. Basically, they get knocked out of the. They're not going to make it to the SEC championship unless LSU just totally blows up. And
they got to beat Ole Miss this week too.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff went. Texas A&M getting blown out. A lot of these teams that Georgia was against, it wasn't a better day. There wasn't a better day for Georgia to have that kind of performance with everything else that was going around in the country. Just the impact with a lot of Georgia, Alabama targets, or Alabama commits that were on campus, and guys that are got Georgia and Tennessee like Dobbs and all these guys. It's just it was just a total full package performance by Georgia. I saw a couple of these defensive guys that Georgia defense staff met with these recruits for the game, told them what they were going to do, and said they did exactly what they said they were going to do on the field, and they execute it flawlessly. And that you like to hear that because recruits want to see results, and that's what we talked about a lot in the offseason. And a lot of people are going to be talking about results in the offseason, but the results show in the fall. And that's why Kirby's an elite recruiter, because he backs his up.
Yeah, I mean, what a just absolute paradox, total dichotomy between what happened with Texas A&M getting the number one class this offseason, a historic class, and just absolutely crapping down their leg this year and not being able to do anything with it. Jimbo Fisher it is malpractice what Jimbo Fisher has done with that program over there. It is absolutely awful.
And we're not even mentioning Miami. So
yeah, well, Miami's an abomination to football. That is awful, ridiculous of what's going on over there. But Kirby Smart continues just to absolutely hit the mark each time, not only on the field, but when it comes to recruiting and those kind of things as well. And they go hand in hand, right? Georgia outperformed in 2017 expectations, right? The 2017 season, and that bolstered a huge class in 2018 coming off the next year. So the expectations, the performance on the field, and the recruiting, it has been just a 1-2 punch for Kirby Smart throughout his time there so far at Georgia, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. I put in my recruiting notes, welcome to the Kirby era of college football, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon. And speaking of that, Trent, man, we had a slew of questions over here for us on the vault this week. In fact, I'm still trying to get some of those in there. So while I do that, any before we jump into specific questions, are there any movements, any rumors, any things that you've heard coming out of Athens that you would call maybe the most significant of the weekend, or maybe a theme, topic, whatever you want to broach here before we get into the questions?
No, we've been talking, and he didn't even visit this weekend, but I think Georgia continues to, be right there at the top of the list for Deuce Robinson, even though there's two tight ends on the commit list. And Hartley has made him a priority since, day one. And a lot of people said, well, now that Georgia's got two tight ends, there's not room, but that hasn't been approached that way. And I think Georgia's the team to beat for Deuce Robinson. I've mentioned this for a couple of weeks, or maybe even a month. I don't even know. But, Georgia's felt good about Robinson, where they stand, and he's a hybrid guy. He come in there and he can play wide receiver, can play tight end, and you know how Georgia likes to play their tight ends everywhere. But I think he'd be more as a not a Brock Bowers type, but playing more on the outside. And Georgia is really, really standing out there. It's getting late in the recruiting process there as well. You have Damon Wilson, who I think Georgia is done a great job with. Continues to be a Georgia-Ohio State battle. I think that's the only two teams really in the mix. I think they're just taking blows back and forth. Georgia had the momentum, then Ryan Day visited him and kind of gained that momentum back in Ohio State's favor. He's been rumored of being close to commitment, but I think that's might have swung back, a little bit in the way of Georgia this weekend with the visit he had. Still a long ways to go there. I don't expect a commitment coming, in the next 2 weeks or anything. That one could go to early signing day. There's just a slew of guys that Georgia made impacts on. Caleb Downs and Justice Haynes being on campus. I think there probably might have been a little bit more ground made for maybe Justice than Caleb at this point, but I know both of them had a great time, and both of them, had to listen to what the coaches had to say. Both of them were in the locker room.
Yeah, that's the thing, and we're going to get in specifically to that. But again, too, not only did like we said before, does Kirby and them get to basically just point to, hey, do you see what just happened? But these guys are literally getting to experience the jubilation, the celebrating of all the hard work that this team puts in. So they get to hear firsthand from Kirby and from the staff and from the current players that you're going to work your tail off when you come to Georgia. But then they got to firsthand see what happens when you reap the benefits of that as well. So I think that was that's a big selling point on that as well. And that's just something that can't be replicated other places, even Alabama this year, because Alabama's not going to be they're not going to be playing for championships, and that's a rare thing for the Clemson, the Crimson Tide. And I said Clemson there. Clemson ain't going to be playing for no championship either. But so maybe the ACC championship, but Drake May and North Carolina may have something to say about that too. They're playing their tails off right now in terms of offensively, at least. But we're going to get to the questions here. We had a ton of them on the vault. Yeah, guys, speaking of a ton, we got a ton of you guys in here right now. Subscribe to the channel if you don't already. Also, be a member of the UGA Sports Vault, because I know for a fact people that are members of the UGA Sports Vault, Trent, they got information on Saturday night and on Sunday morning that nobody else had yet. So that is a reason to be a member of the Vault. And then stuff starts, matriculating its way out on Monday morning. So make sure you're subscribed here for free. Make sure you're a member of the Vault over there where you have to pay a little bit, but it's worth it over there. So, Trent, first question is from loyal Rumors versus Facts watcher and questioner, PA Dog 610. He said, who flips first, Evans or Haynes? Just want to give y'all props for recruiting coverage this past weekend. See, PA Dog knows what's up, what's going on over there. But who flips first, Evans or Haynes? And we're not necessarily saying that Haynes is going to flip. No one has put those words out there here from this outlet, but we will get into more of that later. But Trent, your thought on that question?
Me personally, I'm still saying if Justice Haynes flips, I think it's going to be late in the process. I would say Evans. I would go with Evans just because I think Georgia made up a lot of ground. There was a Georgia. As we've talked about on the show, Georgia's led for Evans for a while, and that was kind of a late minute decision to go over to Oklahoma, and the communication never stopped. The communication with McClendon never stopped. Communication even with the Kirby never stopped, and that I think that relationship kind of rekindled with him being on campus this weekend. I would say Evans before Haynes at this point, but we'll see what happens. But I would say Evans.
Yeah, I mean, with Evans, for all the world, listen, the day before he committed to Oklahoma, Trent, we were hearing up to a couple hours before that he was Georgia bound. He was going to Georgia. We had a story written, we had edits, all this kind of stuff lined up, ready to go, like we do everybody that we know is a slam dunk going to Georgia. And the rug kind of got pulled out from under there. Brian McClendon is a very personable, very intentional human being. Okay. He does well talking to people because they know that he's present. He genuinely cares. And I don't think it took too long for Anthony Evans and his family to be around Brian McClendon again and kind of get reminded of why he was so interested in Georgia the first time.
And I don't think we need to, DeAndre Moore. I think Georgia would take both him and Evans. So getting Evans on the commit list does not mean that Georgia, is eliminated from DeAndre Moore. I think Georgia's is pushing for both, and Deuce Robinson. So they've preached playmakers and they've preached. And Kirby's talked about the lack of depth and playmakers at wide receiver, and I think they're trying to fill that void.
Yeah, I mean it is it's crazy to see, people say, well, can you take that many? I just think Georgia is at the point now where, especially with the initial counter rule out the window now, Trent, I think that if they have an opportunity to stack playmakers and particularly get as much speed as possible in the program, I feel like they're absolutely going to do it. Now, our next question comes here from Andy Stokes. Is Caleb Downs possible? Meaning flipping to Georgia. Could Kirby and staff possibly pull this one off? And O-line, are you guys hearing that any big-time blue chip guys wanting to join the new world order of college football? New world order. There we
go. Caleb Downs, that's another one that's just, he made a last-minute visit. We didn't have him on the visitor list. I don't believe. I know we didn't on that Friday. And he decided to come visit. Him and Justice are close. They both committed to Alabama. I would still rank Georgia's chances of flipping Justice higher than Caleb's at this point, but he was on campus. He listened to what the coach had to say. I think the door is open. I think the door is open wider than it was coming into this weekend, but I'm not going to say that the chances are over 50% that he flips. I still think there's work to do there.
Yeah, I think there's extenuating circumstances in Caleb's recruitment and background that do not exist in Justice's, and I think it's prohibitive at this point. I don't see Caleb Downs it's a whole lot different with Justice Haynes, in my opinion, in terms of some of the barriers there of Downs possibly getting to Georgia. DeBusk 23-10. Are we getting everyone or are we getting everyone? Those are the two choices. He says, "Go Dogs." So DeBusk is really feeling the momentum there, Trent, and I think rightfully so. I don't think that there's not that you're ever going to talk to somebody, a recruit, typically after a big recruiting weekend and expect to hear anything but positive things. But I think the candor that came out of some of these recruits being like, no, this was, it wasn't just a great visit. This was like a banner mark. They were talking about how, you know, there were some that said, I don't usually get hype for a game or anything like that, but they said they were literally feeding off the energy of the crowd and they weren't even playing at that point. So I think it did have a huge impact this weekend.
Yeah, and it had a huge impact on classes, 24, 25, even 26. This was a game that Kirby needed with having a poor home schedule, I guess, over the past 2 years. Looking coming into the season, you said, "Oh, well, Tennessee's the only one, but they'll probably have a couple losses, so it's not going to be a big game." But that was a huge game, or end up being 1-3, a huge game, primetime start, and they packed the house with recruits, and it was just this is a game and could be a building block, and I'll always say, doesn't make or break as far as their commit coming to the school, but that it also can be a building block, with what they compare their visits to over the next 2 or 3 years. This is always going to be on the back of their mind. Do I want to play in front of that? Do I want to play, with this kind of physicality, with this kind of championship squad, or what about these other visits? So I think that's just kind of it's something that's going to be on the back of these minds of 25 and 26 kids, moving forward.
And it could not have worked out any better. I'm just telling you, it couldn't have worked out any better in terms of some of the circumstances on this. You got Nolan Smith and Robert Beal. Robert Beal went out during the game, but Nolan Smith was out before the game and caused a little bit of a shuffle in some of how the outside linebacker position was handled, even some of the inside linebacker rotations, different stuff like that. A lot of youth on that field. And I know that's what guys like Sammy Brown, linebacker from Jefferson, he was like, listen, it's one thing for guys to talk about, schools to talk about early playing time, but he said it's another thing to see Glenn Schumann literally have guys who were in high school last year and have them ready to produce at the level that they produced against the best offense in college football this year. He's, and this is a kid that knows what he's talking about because his dad's a former head coach, former defensive coordinator. Now I believe he's an offensive line coach at Jefferson. But man, that made a difference. These guys saw young players step up and produce like Georgia wasn't even missing a beat, Trent.
Yeah, and they, they were rotating, and I know these are, Tresman Marshall and Ryan Davis, but it's almost like Georgia has 32 defensive players ready to play every week with the injuries that they've had. With guys in the secondary, Dalen Everett had to come in for a couple of plays when Ringo lost his helmet. You never missed a beat out there. They've rotated the star position between Bullard and who's also young. And, you got Kamari Lassiter on the other side, who's also young. And then you're rotating your linebackers. You got Marvin Jones on the field. And you got Michael Williams on the field. And little Bear Alexander. So you're putting all these guys in, and you're expecting, okay, that eventually this is going to bust because, there's no way you can carry on with this youth. And Kirby and Muschamp and Schumann, they got these guys. They got 28, 30 guys ready to play every weekend, and it doesn't matter if you're a freshman, doesn't matter if you're a sophomore, and it matter if you're a 6-year senior. Those guys are ready to step in, and that there's no slouching over there if they're not getting the snaps early, but when their number's called, they're ready, and then they perform.
Yeah, and the practice is a part of it too. I've heard Dane say several times before. Kirby Smart has very openly said, like with Tyron Ingram Dawkins, he's like, "Hey, he's not practicing well. That's why he's not playing as much because he was playing early snaps." Well, that practice must have turned around because that young man had himself a ball game on Saturday, and he's just a redshirt freshman, if you will. So it's a lot of youth was out there doing a lot of things. All right, we got a little bit of a loaded question here from KSDJ1869. Say, give your confident percentage on these 23 class prospects commit/flip to UGA. Flips first. Haynes, Downs, Moore, Louis, Evans, and Cobb. We'll end it right there. So let's go with the flips first. Haynes, Downs, Moore, Louis, Evans, and Cobb. You can give your percentages on those, and I'll give them.
I don't know really about percentages, but I would go. I would go Evans being the highest, with Moore being the second highest, Haynes being behind him, and I'm at the point now where Cobb and Louis will be at the bottom with Downs because I think Georgia is at the point now where they're going Haynes or Portal at the running back position. There's been no offers out. They're still talking, they're still discussing, but I'm at the point now where I think it's Haynes or the Portal because they're going to wait till the last day for Haynes. But yeah, I would have do what
the last second. They're going to wait till
the last second. But yeah, I would go those wide receivers at the top, and then Haynes slightly behind them.
I completely agree. Now with the guys who aren't committed yet, we can do percentage on those. Impemba, Hobbs, Wilson, Hall, and then Russo and Smith. What are your percentages on those?
Mpemba, I would go with 75, 80%. Wilson, I would go 55%. See, Hobbs, I'm leaning towards more, slightly over 50% too. There's 3 teams involved there, but I think Georgia sits in a good spot there. And Russo and Smith, I would still have that the lowest, the lower end, and Hall, Hall's up there. Hall's up there with Mpemba.
Yeah, I'm going to give Hall and Impemba both like 90% chance, and then I'm going to give
I wasn't being generous.
I'm going to give Hobbs and Wilson both in that around that 55-60% chance, and I'm going to give Russo and Smith about 2% chance. I don't think it's going to happen. So that's where I would be with that question. All righty. Here's Big Dog asking any updates on the timeline of King Joseph Edwards. Noticed a sideline photo with George Pickens. Listen, I put out on the vault that I don't necessarily. I know I put a future cast in a long time ago because I thought and way things were going that it'd be King Joseph Edwards to Georgia. If I could take that future cast back, I would, because I don't. I doubt that happens at this point in this juncture. Trent, I just don't know. I think he's a Buford guy, and I know that is what it is at this point. And then 2, some players, their recruitments are way more fluid than others. We'll just say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you summed it up pretty good. I do think Georgia's going to have success at Buford in this recruiting class of 24, but I don't think King Joseph Edwards at this point will be one of those names that's there.
Yeah, not feeling it right this second. All right, that was before on this question. All right, F.M. McCrary or F. McCrary Jr. How many silent commits do we have from 2023? And of them, how many are likely to pull a Kamari Wilson? I would say coming out of this weekend, Trent, I would say that there's 2, maybe 3 guys that could already have given Georgia the Iggy, so to speak. But I'm telling you now, I put zero stock in a silent commit, and unless somebody comes out and publicly commits, I could care less if they're silently committed.
Yeah, I mean there's been at least 3 silent commits commit elsewhere in this class. So and that's at least. So I don't put a lot of stock in silence. I do know that there's guys that have told the staff that they're coming to Georgia. I know, but to me, some people have dates for reasons. Some people have dates because this, it might be their when their grandfather passed, or when their mom or dad's birthday, or something like that, and that's understandable. But as longer these some of these guys don't have a timeline, and then they're saying if you're silent committed, you're not. Uh, to me, you're not committed. So there's a lot of I would say 3 or 4 kids that have told the staff that they're coming, but again. That's just what we're hearing on this side, and it could be on another side as well. So right now, I feel confident about those, but we'll see moving forward.
Absolutely. And then we have a question from QFlow 11 Dog. Which DN and OLB do we end up with in this class? Meaning Georgia. Also, do you think Bo Hughley stays committed? I saw that he was not at the game. I think he was actually at the LSU game. If I remember hearing that correctly, I'm not 100% positive on that, but I think he was. So we've talked about edge guys. We've talked about Mpemba and Wilson. And then I mean, Rusaw's out there, but I think right now Trent, and then David Hobbs, who can play defensive end, but also is big enough where he could end up growing into a 3 technique type deal. Jordan Hall even is playing some defensive end in it, or was in his high school year this year. So I think those 4 names are really the ones that you're looking at DN or OLB.
Yeah, that is with what's committed at linebacker, I think if Georgia could finalize the class with Mpemba and Damon Wilson, they would. I mean, that might be the best linebacker class in the history of high school recruiting. I mean that's an insane with the inside linebackers they have now, and
Oh yeah. Well, listen, CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson were at the game, and Troy Ball. All 3 of those were there, and all 3 of them were working on Mpemba and working on Damon Wilson. Jonell Aguero, I put this out there on the vault as well in my recruiting notes. This is not a young man that talks a lot, okay? Jonell Aguero would rather just hit something, like anything, than probably have a conversation with someone. But he was out there doing work, talking with Mpemba. Of course, formerly his teammate at IMG. I'm sure that he made his way around to Damon Wilson as well. And listen, Pierce Spurlin, if he ever wants to establish residency back in Georgia after his time, it's an election day tomorrow. Pierce Spurlin could probably run for governor of Georgia at some point in time, because that man does a lot of, shaking hands and kissing babies, so to speak. I mean, he's a recruiter and a half, and really is somebody that already, even before his career has gotten started, has done a lot for this Georgia program, Trent.
Yeah, I mean, and it was more than just those guys. Jamal Jarrett, and there was Miller, and then there was just the commits showed up, and they all were on these targets, and I mean, just that, along with atmosphere, along with the game, like we discussed, it was just you having the opportunity to celebrate after that game with the defending national champions, who are on are going to be ranked number 1 when the playoff rankings come out tomorrow. So I mean, it's just an exciting time to be in something that a lot of these kids, they're preaching it, come be a part of it, and at this time, I just you look back at Alabama over the last 10 years and you say, God, it'd be hard not to want to be a part of it, just because how physical, how defensive how that offense looked and how they're playing for championships every year. And now Georgia's at that peak. I don't think they're at peak, but they're on the incline up, and
Yeah. Well, I mean, talk about a legitimate chance now. I mean,
oh yeah,
nobody is scoffing at when somebody says, "Hey, Georgia could win back-to-back national championships." I mean, that's more than a real possibility here. And then you go peek ahead at the 2023 schedule that Georgia has, and there is no reason that, providing that things stay consistent in how they go about their day-to-day business, that they shouldn't be undefeated and sitting in the SEC championship in 2023 again. And so I mean, it could be a true dynastic
And
reign.
what's scary and what Kirby's built is, not having Jalen Carter for those 6 weeks were rough because, the defensive line was young. Their defense was still growing after losing all them draft picks last year. But they've grown depth, and I mean, you've seen that depth. You've seen Warren Brinson and Stackhouse and all these guys just show out, become dominant players over the last 6 or 7 weeks with Carter out, and now all that showing. And this whole defense is going to be back for a majority of them. You're losing the outside linebackers, but you don't have no one the rest of the year. So now you have the opportunity to build up guys like Marvin Jones the rest of the year. And
Jalen Walker was all over the place.
yeah,
I mean,
but then when you got you're losing Chris Smith, but you got your secondary class of last year was just loaded, and now you're bringing in another secondary class that's loaded. So this is how you stack championships, and this is going to be a fun next 4 or 5 years or and beyond for this Georgia fan base.
well, we've kind of worked through all the questions. I do want to say this on whether it's Justice Haynes or whether it's a Caleb Downs or this Anthony Evans from wide receiver committed to Oklahoma, DeAndre Moore, whoever. There was a huge NIL kind of summit, so to speak, and campaign drive, illegal. I'm not talking about anything, like McDonald's bags of cash, Pruitt style. I'm talking about true getting businesses in there in Athens in front of the Georgia head coaches of the various sports, in front of Josh Brooks, giving them the importance of partnering with the Classic City Collective, getting them the importance of partnering with Georgia athletics through the legacy program that they're implementing and things like that. That was a very successful weekend. And then you add that excitement to it that Georgia was able to generate there. Hey, Trent, you get a bunch of rich guys around good football and get them liquored up a little bit. Those wallets start opening up a little bit. The checkbooks come up. And so hearing that Georgia's made a lot of ground on the NIL front as well. And listen, that is the world that we live. This isn't illegal money and stuff we're talking about anymore. This is businesses that are willing to pay kids that come to the University of Georgia. You can't use it as inducement, but you can say, hey, these funds are available to University of Georgia athletes, and these are the type of businesses that are partnering with University of Georgia athletes. Absolutely huge, and I think it's going to have dividends. This weekend will have dividends for, like I said, not only this class, but years to come for Georgia.
Yeah, 100%. And it's happening. All this is happening at the right moment, of course, with early signing day about 6 weeks away. So and we're going to be having early signing day after an opportunity to watch Georgia once again. Barring anything crazy, playing the SEC championship, and once again, probably see their name located on the top 4 when the playoffs, when the bowls come out that day, with early signing day right after that. So everything's working in the favor of Georgia, along with this NIL process. Moving in late, and there's going to be an opportunity like we've talked about since the spring. Don't count out Kirby for these guys. He's going to be in with some of these guys, even in the committed elsewhere guys, until the last moment. And Kirby will land a top 3 class. maybe even the top one.
Yeah. Welcome, Jed, here towards the end of the show, and we're about to wind it up. But man, just tell everybody, where you been, what you been doing today, and what's coming for them over there on the vault, Jed.
You've been playing golf?
Yeah, I wish I was playing golf. It was a good day for it. No, I went over to Parkview, talked with a bunch of guys over there. Actually had a big contingent at the game Saturday, headlined by, of course, 5-star Mike Matthews, who was saying, it was interesting because Georgia's looking at, I don't know if y'all talked about him today, but Georgia's looking at him as a receiver. But I asked him, what was his favorite part of the game? And it was like watching that defense, like watching the defense. He killing it, I think was the term he used. So, but you've got a 25 offensive lineman from Parkview, Cortez Smith, who was at the game and got offered. 26 guy, Zealous Hicks, who Georgia was the first offer for him a couple weeks ago. A couple other guys from Parkview as well. So I was there today, and then you got stories on those guys. There's a story on number one safety in the 24 class, Peyton Woodyard. I'll have tomorrow. There's Blaine. You got a story on Ryan Montgomery coming out tomorrow. Julian Lewis should have a story coming soon on him as well. Just I know y'all have talked about it for the past 45 minutes, but just the level of talent that was in Athens. I mean, I mentioned this in my note yesterday. There was about 20 of the top 100 for 2025 that were there at that game the other day, and that doesn't even count, KJ Bolden, Mike Matthews, all these other guys that were from the 24 class that were there, and the 23 guys as well. So just a preposterous amount of talent was in town over the weekend.
No doubt. Of course, quarterbacks always get a lot of attention, like you said. Ryan Montgomery, I'll have a story coming out on him first thing in the morning over on the vault. So you want to make sure you're a member over there, guys, because there's stuff coming out every day, as Jed just pointed out. But when it comes down to Ryan Montgomery, there's a lot of people say, oh, well, his brother's committed to Ohio State. Listen, this was his second game day visit, his fifth visit overall on his own dime down to Georgia. And Todd Monken took time to speak to him before the game for a extended amount of time and after the game for an extended amount of time. Kirby Smart walked directly up to him and spoke to him about things after the game. All the details will be in there, but just know this, Ryan Montgomery is a major priority for Georgia in the class of 2025.
Well, and just kind of building off that, I'm sure you guys have heard this too. A lot of these guys have said, yeah, we got a little bit of FaceTime with coaches. We didn't get to talk to them a whole lot, especially talking about before the game, because there's obviously pressing matters at hand. So the fact, Blaine, like you just said, Monken speaking with Montgomery before and after the game, that's huge. And Peyton Woodyard, another guy, like I just mentioned, number one, a safety for the 24 class, came over from California. He ate breakfast with Fran Brown yesterday morning.
Yeah.
Like you said, coach is spending a lot of time with guys this weekend. That's like the big priority, guys. And obviously there was some official visitors as well. But this is a weekend that could kind of like that first G Day Kirby Smart had, kind of like that 2019 Notre Dame game. This could be a weekend that's got huge ripple effects for multiple classes kind of spanning out over the next couple of years.
I agree. It's a lot going on. Guys, we've talked about just about everything recruiting related that we could here on this show. Like I said, if you want all the news and tidbits that you can get Georgia recruiting wise, listen, we had stuff, full stories, nuggets, little posts, everything out on Saturday night, even more on Sunday morning before you saw them anywhere else. They were on the UGA Sports Vault. So make sure you're not only subscribed here and turn on notifications. You'll want to, I'm sure, listen to Coach Donnan and Roddy tomorrow as they prepare everybody for what Mike Leach and everybody has going on over there. But also, I'm sure he'll break down that Tennessee victory even more, like they did on the watch along show and all that. But guys, that's it for us here on UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts this week for Jed May and Trent Smallwood. I am Blaine Gilmer, and go ahead and subscribe, like, turn on notifications. We'll catch you next time.